Hey everybody, we're going to talk about chapter 10 really quick, which is stress and reduction of stress. So, stress is often one of the number one things that people approach me about whenever it comes to wellness and wellness programs, as we are all disheveled by stress and what it does to our bodies. So, let's take a minute just to kind of grasp what stress is and what it does to our bodies and how to cope with stress. So, the definition in your book of stress, which I'm going to read right here off of your PowerPoint, is the collection of physical and emotional changes we experience in response to the demands of stressors. So, that would be physical and emotional changes that we experience due to different stressors in our lives. We can also categorize it as the tension between the mind, body, and soul. So, all of that tension adds up and creates that stress response within our bodies. So, what are the different types of stress? We have two different types of stress, technically, so categories. One would be acute stress, and the other is chronic stress. Acute stress is categorized by fight or flight. So, those are the quick moments that someone comes over in our lane and we have to make a very quick reaction, which causes us stress. The chronic stressors are what signals our general adaptation syndrome, or that part of our brain which tends to go into resistance mode and exhaustion sometimes, and exhaustion is just not a good place to be whenever it comes to stress. So, general adaptation syndrome, like I said, within our bodies and within stress has three stages. So, the first stage is alarm. So, those are the alarm bell and whistles going off in our brain saying, oh, this is a stressor, what do we do? The second is the resistance piece that our body is fighting against that stressor and trying to stay calm and trying to maintain. And the third stage of that is exhaustion. And exhaustion, again, is a place that you just do not want to be. When we are in fight or flight mode for an extended period of time, our body has to, again, fight that. We have to resist that cause. Puts a lot of stress on our organs, puts a lot of stress on our heart, our lungs, our functioning, and so then our body shuts down. If we've been in exhaustion mode for a very long time, our body can shut down due to stress. But again, that takes a very, very long time and a lot of stress for that to happen. Like I said, there are two different categories of stress, acute and chronic. Now, there are types of stress. So we have good stress and we have bad stress in our lives, and let's talk about that. So the good stress is called eustress, and that eustress is, again, the good stressors in our lives. Whether we think there is good stress or not, there really is. So a few examples would be getting married. That's hopefully a good stressor. That's a big step in life that excites people. You're coming together and binding one another. So again, a good stressor. Another stressor is having a baby. So hopefully that's a good stressor in your life and not a bad stressor. You're bringing another person into the world. Buying a house is a good stressor. All of those things are advancing your life. They're moving you forward. They're exciting milestones that you're achieving. So again, it brings stress, but it's good and exciting stress. Then there's another thing called new stress. So again, new would be like neutral. Think of it that way. Where it's stress that doesn't really impact our lives, but it's still stressful. It still weighs on us, and we think about it, and we become a little consumed by it in ways that we can't necessarily comprehend or explain. So, new stress examples of that would be like the earthquake that just happened in California, or a tsunami hitting somewhere, or another earthquake in another country, or flooding that's happening within Charlotte or different areas that doesn't necessarily affect us. Maybe it does affect you in some way, but it's very minimal or minuscule and just, again, minimal and neutral, something that just does not fully impact you as an individual or your family. Then the third type of stress is distress. And the distress is the bad stress that we just do not want our lives. And it tends to weigh on us, which causes mental, emotional, and physical distress that can generate illness and put us into that exhaustion mode that we don't want to be in. So distress can be taking care of a loved one, or a loved one dying, or your house burning down, your house getting broken into, a car crash. All of those things are really bad stressors in your life that you don't want, and they generate that distress that can place extra burden on our organs and our being. So without stress or with stress, we would need our autonomic nervous system. And our autonomic nervous system is the control center for all unconscious controls. So breathing, that's your autonomic nervous system. Swallowing, that's your autonomic nervous system. Sleep, that's your autonomic nervous system. All the things that you don't consciously have to think about or consciously have to control, that is your autonomic nervous system playing its part in your existence, essentially, right? So there are two different pieces of your autonomic nervous system that play a huge role in stress. And the first one is your sympathetic nervous system, and your sympathetic nervous system is what launches your fight or flight. And that is what releases your adrenaline or epinephrine, which is a hormone that tells you that you need to fight or flight. You need to figure out if you need to run away, if you can stay. It's that general reaction from your brain that says, oh, I'm good, or no, I'm not good. I really have got to do something about this. Let's move. So the sympathetic nervous system and adrenaline are the things that are figuring out if the smell of smoke is burning popcorn, or if it's your house, or if a scream is from the TV, or if it's real life. Those are the things that you're trying to figure out. And then in junction with adrenaline, cortisol is also released dependent upon that reaction. So adrenaline is released in your body for flight or flight. You got to make a move. So you make a move, you decide that you are at risk, cortisol increases. Not at risk, cortisol comes back down. So everything is dependent upon that adrenaline level, and then your cortisol will either increase or decrease based upon your reaction or your brain's reaction to the situation. The second piece of your autonomic nervous system is your parasympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system is what balances the sympathetic nervous system out in your autonomic nervous system, and the parasympathetic is what brings you back to normal. It brings you back to homeostasis. Everything's fine, everything's coming back into play. And those things are contributed to the hormone oxytocin, which we'll talk about in Tend and Befriend. So oxytocin plays a huge role in gender reaction to stressors. Women tend to have more oxytocin levels than men do. Men have more testosterone levels. So Tend and Befriend is the women's way of coping with stress in a lot of different ways. Tend and Befriend means that women seek out verbal communication from other women or other people when they're stressed. So that's the natural reaction for women based upon oxytocin, of having that kind of motherly communication, motherly care, whereas men will be a little bit more aggressive with the testosterone and possibly get into more fights or different things of that nature with the testosterone. But I do want to say that men and women react to stressors the same way. The sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system are the exact same approach in gender neutrality. The only difference, again, is the testosterone and the oxytocin. So the testosterone outweighs the oxytocin, which creates that more aggressive interaction, whereas women have the less testosterone and the more oxytocin, so they have the more nurturing and communicative reaction to stress. Moving forward, it's important for you to understand the ABCDE model whenever we're talking about stress management and stress coping skills. So the ABCD model stands for adversity, belief, consequences, dispute, and energization. So that's your ABCD model, the acronym for that model. Also on your PowerPoint. Check that out if you misheard me or you're just not sure. If you have questions, please email me. But the first step is adversity, so identifying the cause of your stress. What is giving you grief that is creating that stressor in your life? Then the second step, belief. What is your belief of that stressor? What are you thinking is going to happen? Third, the consequence of that stressor. What do you believe, or what do you think is going to happen as a result of the stressor? What could be coming into play? Then the next step would be to dispute those facts. Okay, so maybe that could happen, but this could also happen, or maybe that's not even a possibility at all. And then the The last phase is your energization phase, which means you've disputed your adversity. You now have faith in whatever you're doing moving forward, and you're energized about what you're about to do. So the ABCD model is more of a positive self-talk model, and that's exactly what you should compare it to, is positive self-talk. And it's just kind of a walkthrough of trying to how to better talk to yourself and better inform yourself, because a lot of times we talk to ourselves so poorly and we're the first to judge ourselves. So the ABCD model is a more positive model for that purpose. Moving forward, you have multiple different stress management ways to cope. You have art therapy, journal writing, ecotherapy, massage therapy, aromatherapy, pet therapy, play therapy. You name it, there's all different ways to cope. I want you to take a look at the PowerPoints that I've provided on Blackboard for journal writing and art therapy. They might provide you some good techniques for stress management. So art therapy, those adult coloring books aren't sold for nothing. They're actually a lot of fun if you try those out. You can do a lot of different methods. You can do freehand, you can do the adult coloring books, you can paint, you can do whatever floats your boat. For the journal writing therapy, you have multiple different ways that you can do journal writing. You can write journals every day, or you can do Buzan writing style or a proprioceptive method. All of those things, I do strongly recommend that you check out the Buzan writing method. That might be on your quiz, hint, hint. So please check that out. If you have any other questions about stress management, please let me know. I'm always happy to help, and I'm always here to help.